17 Heroes Global Championship Finals are brought to you in part by Republic of Gamers, Intel, T-Mobile, and NVIDIA.
Ballistix leads 1-0 at the moment as we're going into game number 2. And overall, SPT here, they did show signs of hope. They did show signs of life against the Ballistix that looked very, very dominant and very, very powerful against a team like Expert. But it goes to show how just across the entirety of the world, all of these regions, especially a region like China, has really kind of stepped up their game, being able to hold their own against Ballistix as they did.
Yeah, SPT is at the top of China. They have been disseminating more of the meta or the macro style play to the other teams. It's just a matter of trying to get to the level that E-Star was. And they have talked about that before to us, where they feel like all of the top tier Chinese players left the scene, and so they're trying to fill that hole and that gap, and it takes time for them to get back to the level of where E-Star was, where they were the only team that could really challenge MVP Black at their height last year.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at, we talk about the Noble S leaving a huge gap for Hooligan to follow, but I feel like in terms of the Chinese scene, Xing Shen has left a gap, and Xin Zhao is trying to fit into that slot as well in terms of DPS. It's like you see these Chinese legends, these Korean legends, and this is the new generation trying to be those DPS stars.
Let's find out where we're going to be going for game number 2 here as we find out the next battleground. And it will be Sky Temple by Ballistix. That's got to be a bit of a scary one.
This is, in my opinion, their best map. I don't care what win rates say at all. Even if it's a 100% win rate or it's a 50% win rate, the way that I see Ballistix play this is, it actually was a blueprint for the way that Fnatic kind of plays it now, or the way that they played it throughout this year. I think Fnatic learned a lot during last year's BlizzCon against this team. The same way that I talked about rotations and the macro play on Cursed Hollow, it's even further exemplified here on Sky Temple. We'll see the high priority potentially on the global here for Ballistix, so I'm really curious what SPT has for an answer.
I'm scared of Sonya.
Yeah, game 2. It's going to be seeing if Ballistix here can move on to BlizzCon in strong, dominant fashion. And I like the way that Jayhao describes that Gillyweed, a blueprint for Fnatic. And obviously, last BlizzCon, you were able to cast a lot of Ballistix, doing so well in the macro game.
Yeah, Ballistix, that's always been, as long as they have been a team, their high point. They are even more concerted with their rotations a lot of time than MVP Black, but MVP Black is more risky in the types of choices they will make as far as objective play. Whereas you might see Ballistix try to stick together and group around a mercenary camp while they push multiple lanes. MVP Black would, after a Dragon Knight phase, go straight to both camps, and that's a punishable point.
I think what SPT tried to do last game is they took 2 half measures. The Zarya pick was clearly them trying to say, we're going to try to win the early game with this pressure, and we're also going to try to win team fights in the late game. We have this hyper carry Bala. So they took the team fight thing halfway, they took the pressure in the early game halfway. In this the previous draft, they could have just drafted Uther instead. Would have made defending Xin Zhao in that last fight a lot easier, for example. So I'd like to see them go down one strong path, not 2 half paths here in this draft on Sky Temple, because this map is unforgiving. As you know, Jayhao said earlier, use your macro to get ahead. This map snowballs. It's the most common second pick map in Korea by a landslide, because the winning team takes this one, tries to get that landslide victory, close the series out very early, get that 2-0 lead, you know, momentum-wise in the best of 5 and a best of 3. It could end here. You choose first pick over the map, and you need to have a really solid game plan with the composition you're building, not 2 smaller plans, 2 ideas combined to 1.
They have to respect now the Genji potential after the last game. It may not be high priority for Ballistix, but it's certainly a threat after that first game. Taking away the Tassadar leaves open, or takes away the potential Vala, as we see the ETC first pick there, but see if Genji is locked in. We don't have the snap lock like we did last time.
Man, I'm kind of hoping that Ballistix wants to go for something else. ETC is a high priority for them, or it has been on Sky during part 2, but I really want a chance for Melody C to show us his Genji too, because he also plays an incredible Genji, and it's a different style than how SCSC would play it.
I think we might just see them lock in Genji Brightwing. Boss control, which is so important on this map, and the single boss you can do an early boss. You get level 10 first, that's the Korean way. play the macro game, get the lead, not by getting kills or picks, but by getting structural damage done with the first temple phase. You go to the third, you take that control of that boss. Maybe we'll see them push towards it later, but the Genji and Brightwing Bomb combo we saw last game was so strong. Gonna save it for now, though, looking for wave clear and the stability that Hooligan's Muradin provides.
Do you think that Muradin Rehgar for them is just going to be a staple to... Like, we saw it in the last series that me and you were casting Wolf, and then from there, they can craft anything around. This tells people nothing about what they want to do. Yeah,
it's more of a reactionary comp, and I think that's maybe the idea for Ballistix. Said, okay, we're going to get ahead on this map. This is one of our best maps, as Jayal was saying, but you chose first pick. And what are you going to do with that? Let's react. Let's not try to set the pace in the draft because we're one pick behind. And that's kind of how Heroes works, right? When you have first pick, you lose that map choice, but you have the opportunity to set the pace. That's what first pick means quite literally. So it's a more reactionary draft here for Ballistix. And, you know, they did go for the Muradin Rehgar very early on in their draft against Expert when they had first pick themselves. See what they want to do here.
No, they get the Genji Brightwing, yes!
Okay, so they have an opportunity to give Ballistix a taste of their own medicine. All right.
Very excited, Gilly here.
Guys, get ready.
Now let's talk about Sonya.
Get ready to watch Ballistix try and run away from it and just win the map.
We've seen
That's what I feel like they'll try and do.
We've seen so many times. Korean teams, Black did this. We saw Tempest do this as well. When Brightwing is chosen early with a draft like this, just immediately go to the Sonya pick. I think a ban on the Sonya would be so strong because Brightwing offers you that split soak in the late game. You can teleport in, you can have these Brightwing bombs. But Brightwing is never a threat like Sonya is in terms of pushing, especially in the earliest of early games. So I think a Sonya ban here would be very wise. They could then draft the Tyrael if they want to protect their Genji, if they want to play against the Malthael.
Possibly telling toward a Malthael. Malthael sets up well for Dragon Blade to finish off a complete team fight, wipe a team, and would also be nice for the Touch of Death healing reduction of Rehgar.
The funny thing about this is, I like the choice to ban the Lucio because it's a strong secondary support, gives rotational power. You ban either the Sonya or the Malthael, they can kind of draft around that. With ETC already picked up, it's unlikely SPT can draft a Tyrael to deal with that Malthael, right? So if you ban the Sonya, they take the Malthael, they can't take Tyrael. But this time you force Ballistix to make the choice between these two top laners here. And I think that's why Ballistix is hesitating a little bit. Dahaka is still available. Perhaps he's the more well-rounded pick here for this map. But they're going to have to make one of these choices now. And obviously we're looking at DPS. So it's going to be Dahaka. They choose the more well-rounded of the three. They have the Sonya, the Malthael, Dahaka. It's what they did against Team Expert. It's the safe play.
I agree with you on the sense that they had to make a decision on one of the two of those. They end up with a Dahaka, and to me, it just screams that they're going to try more of the macro-style focus. And it just kind of brings back a memory of last year with Ballistix coming in. It was on Sky Temple, and it was kind of when I saw, I guess, Ballistix for the first time stumble a little, and it was during the first temple phases that somebody brought the fight to them on the temple. They slipped up just a little bit, didn't win the team fight. And I think that one of the band-aids to that is to make sure that you don't lose experience somewhere else. You have the global there, so if something does go wrong, that's your fallback option. I'm not saying they would lose a team fight. I'm not even saying likely they would. But the possibility of that being there, to have that fallback option, have that more well-rounded global style, I think that's just a safe pick for Ballistix.
Well, time's ticking down here for SPT. They're going to have to make the choice as to what they want to do. Secondary support or secondary DPS like a Falstad here is going to be, okay, kind of a weird hybrid here, but comps like this have not done well in this tournament. Comps that do not have a dedicated solo laner. And with Dahaka on the other side, Brightwing is going to struggle. They're going to have to find some way to counter that Dahaka or they're going to have a bad time.
I feel like right now we'll probably see a 2-on-2 kind of split. ETC can kind of hold his own just because he's not really going to die in that lane. He has a self-heal, things like that. We might see the 2-on-2 split. It might end up being a 1-1-3. When you talk about the Brightwing, you generally want to have your global in the bottom lane because the first two temples are top and mid, things like that. But you're likely going to have Lunara with Ariel and the Li Ming in response. So solo support Rehgar versus this composition, but you do have the second, potentially third win for Muradin. You've got the essence from Dahaka, so you have sustainability in your front line to be able to hold with that solo support.
This is very rare for Ballistix, and based on the fact that we saw a Li Ming ban actually in the expert game, leads to me to believe this is some sort of scrim, sort of feeling from these teams that's been kind of leaking around. So this is rare. I think it gives them more burst, and they're going to try to burst through that double support.
How sold are you on SPT's comp?
Lunara is just not in the meta right now. It is a Xinxia pick that they're wanting to do here, and it kind of functions as what I was talking about with Malthael, where you're softening up many targets, and then you have a Dragon Blade who can finish them off. But Lunara is fairly vulnerable, especially to a Greymane. I'm expecting a Leaping Strike to try to have a good positioning or better positioning, especially with the possibility of Dahaka flanks too.
I 100% agree. Lunara is going to be a liability, I think, potentially till level 13. You might even see, you know, going into the advantage there, the unfair advantage, getting that. But I imagine greater spell shield with Li Ming on the other side, potentially Greymane coming in. So it will be potentially a very delicate balance between the Genji. How hard do we want to dive? When can we dive? And is it going to be the Leaping Strike and then level 13 make it a little bit easier?
Yeah, I think if we had an Uther here and not an Ariel, I'd be very sold on the Lunara pick. You have that extra protection against the burst, but they couldn't have known that they were going to pick a Li Ming at the end there necessarily. So I think even if you Aegis the Lunara, she's going to die right afterwards. There's no way to be like, okay, we Aegised her, and then what? She dies afterwards anyways, I think, in most situations. So I think it's going to be a tough time.
Right, Lunara, of course, an old school battery for Lunara. So say old school being about half a year ago or whatever. But that's by the by. Let's see if SPT can prove us wrong with the execution in this difficult comp. Going up against Ballistix, 1-0 at the moment to the Korean team. Let's head to the commentators.
Lunara is now in the mix here, but Skimmy's been pretty excited about Li Ming throughout this entire tournament, and Ballistix seems to have pulled her out for you.
Finally, it looks like I actually know what I'm talking about, right? So we get the Li Ming, we're going to get some resets, we're going to get a little bit of roll 20, but with the resets being on one side and the other.
That's right, we're going to see that Li Ming popping in and out and see if she can get those kills that are needed, but I am worried about the Lunara, very similar to the analyst desk at the very top of the show here. It's so difficult to take a Lunara and actually spread poison consistently when you have pressure coming your way, and the amount of power that is up here for Ballistix.
Right, I mean, it seems a bit of a crutch, so to speak, right, with this Oriole. Teams have been heavily reliant on it, and the results speak for themselves. As we jump into game number 2, this is Ballistix's choice. This is their map. It's Sky Temple.
Here we go, into Sky Temple we go, and you're right, it is their battleground. Very similar to Fnatic, they are quite dominant on it. Will a Super Perfect team, a team that is willing to bring the team fight to Ballistix, be able to handle those temple phases? Let's go ahead and hop on into it as our players are ready to go. And someone else we have to shout out, Hooligan on that Muradin. I think we've only seen him twice so far on the Muradin, but I think he is by far one of the best Muradins we have in this tournament.
Here we go, Trixler, game number 2, with Ballistix currently leading the series 1-0. One more. Secure that ticket through to BlizzCon, led by the man himself, Hooligan on that Muradin, Youngha on Dahaka, Sway on Rega, SC on the Greymane, and SDE rounding things out as the Li Ming.
SPT on the right side in the red, Masaka playing the ETC, Melody C playing Genji, Sa playing Ariel, Soap playing Brightwing, and Xinjiao will be playing Lunara. Will he be able to get the damage in this matchup here to allow Genji to clean up Ballistix? Ballistix open up the battleground pretty well, but safely here, just trying to make sure that nothing fishy can happen.
Nothing fishy at all. As Wolf really described on the panel there, the weakness of the Brightwing really can be something that Ballistix can look to abuse. Much the same as we've seen them do on this map in the past, if they get that advantage, they will run with it. The lead is very hard to give up at that stage.
They're already punishing the Brightwing. They've put Greymane and Dahaka in the bottom to deal with the Brightwing. Shove her in as much as you can. You're not aiming to kill the Brightwing. You're trying your best here to burn the ammo on the turrets, but also to peel away support from the normal lineup of the Lunara. Lunara's going to be with that Ariel, but now she's just by herself in that 2-man lane, which makes it much more difficult for her to push out. The threat of a Muradin coming in and dodging out on Detainment Strike makes it difficult for Lunara to be that aggressive.
And just like that, Trick, they then swap that 2-man rotation to the top lane as Jongha drops on up with Swoy, looking to put that pressure there as well, looking to try and get some early aggression. And that means that this tower is their focal point for this first temple phase.
Look at that much more value. He is chasing around this Dahaka. He went all the way from the bottom lane all the way to the top. He comes on up here, and he's actually doing a really good job of shutting down Hooligan. That's right, Hooligan. I'll give you props, and you're going to feed. There we go. Hooligan getting picked up in the top right.
The Caster Curse provides us with a first blood in favor of SPT that showed that they are definitely not out of this game. Yes, it's not their map choice, but they showed us exactly what they can do on the Cursed Hollow against Ballistix, and you know, you can't completely write these guys off just yet.
Exactly, that's a good point. I mean, remember at one point, on Cursed Hollow, SPT was ahead in kills, 6-4 over Ballistix, in a spot where they were able to shut down a curse from them. SPT is capable, but are they able to pull it off again?
You could even argue they were actually winning in terms of objectives. They were taking the boss, they were actually making more value happen. It all came down to that one poly bomb with the Genji. SCSC cleaned up the roster, but now Melody C says we will not let you have that. This time we are going to be the ones in control. It comes down to our execution and flair.
Take note of ETC on the top right here for SPT, controlling this right choke, making sure no flanking come up towards the Ariel and Lenara. SPT is very content with keeping Brightwing in the bottom. They know they have that mismatch that will not occur for them if Dahaka were to be down there. So they're taking the advantage of trying to get something to come their way. Ballistix puts Greymane in the bottom, but as long as ETC anchors and makes sure that SPT can't be caught off guard, they'll at least go for a 1-for-1 trade and come out with an experience lead because they got one wave over their opponent.
SDE for 1 second there, almost flirting with the idea of going for a gank on the bottom lane, trying to take out the Soap. As he does decide to back away. He was pretty pushed up, but does not get caught out, and as a result, Ballistix say thank you very much. There was no pressure from SPT as you put a lot of resources into the top lane. A late rotation means we take your Giants.
Yep.
Now our sights are set on that second Temple phase.
That's a great point there, Skimmy. I mean, I'm loving the way that Ballistix and SPT is playing this map here. Anywhere that Lenara is, they're trying to draw attention away from that area and taking advantage somewhere else. And that was via that Giants that you're mentioning on the right side. Being able to control the bottom Giants makes it much easier for you to control the impending night camp that will be coming later. Hang on, Rhaegar's in trouble. Swoy dodges out on the detainment strike and gets away. Had that connected, could have been a dead Rhaegar.
Very different story if Sa had positioned that one correctly, and they would have definitely got that kill. Wouldn't be the biggest punishment at this stage, given that we are still a bit of time away from that Temple phase, but definitely those are the small opportunities that are presented to you on a plate, and you need to make sure you're eating those.
Hooligan, gosh, tank play right now in this match has been quite passive, but very powerful in terms of control. Hooligan on the right side here is making sure that Lenara and Ariel can't rotate up to the middle to help out with grabbing that night camp on the top side, delaying that night grab, which makes it harder for Brightwing to push on that top lane and move in for a perk. Ballistix, in terms of actual movement, has been a little bit quicker than SPT besides from the Temple phase, and it's really starting to pay off.
Proactive versus reactive, we talk about it a lot between these teams, and given this is your sort of home ground, so to speak, this is going to work in their favor. SDE is called out of position, detainment strike or not, the poison damage is there. And Xin Xiao will go for that second kill of the game.
2 kills for SPT. Ballistix with 0. They grab their night camp on the top left corner, want to start getting that pushed in before that second temple. There it is. And usually around this time in the map, you're starting to see a slight lead for a team. But because of that kills from SPT, they are actually outweighing the rotations that are coming in from Ballistix, and we now are on even footing in experience, which means that race to 10 is even more important.
Race to 10 is definitely the name of this one as the Temple phase does activate. Now we start to wonder how both teams play around with those globals.
The global is always an interesting thing to analyze and, of course, watch out for. Brightwing is forced to stay in the top lane. But look at this. Ballistix has put 2 in the top. They are content with trading out the temple on the bottom side because they have turrets there for defense if they can get the fort broken down. And in fact, they're trying to catch SPT as they come up to defend that area, slowing it down as much as they can. Let's go ahead and take a look at that fort. Is it low on health? No, it hasn't even been hit yet. So SPT identifies this and gets there up fast enough to be able to slow anything from occurring. This is actually really cool play for Sky Temple.
This is a big abuse of that rotation that you were discussing earlier in this series. They're tricking right now, they collapse on. Yes, Li Ming goes to the floor, but it doesn't matter because the trade is there, the drag connects, the kill is there. That's 2 for 1.
Little small mistakes costing SPT there. 2 kills come in for Ballistix. They take a hike in experience here, moving towards level 10. Now, what is their follow-up? Do they push in the fort, which is typically what you usually want to do if you're not in state already? And yes, they do. They move in for the fort, putting Greymane in position to shred it down. And Ballistix starting to run a little bit here with those 2 kills.
Seeing a lot of isolations being picked up into Haka players as this tournament's gone on, specifically to try and deny the amount of pressure that an ETC can output on the battlefield. But this time, it's all about sustain. You got Avatar, you got Adaptation, Ancestral across the board. It's about staying alive, making sure that Melody C finds no reset potential.
But the X-Strike here from SPT, Skimmy, that is an interesting pickup.
I mean, that's a complete variation on the fly. I mean, they got staged up to try and deal with that global pressure, but the X-Strike, we talk about it a lot. If you're not confident with that invulnerability to find the value with the Dragon Blade, how about the X-Strike to try and make that X mark on the spot?
Yeah, looks like they want to try and delete Li Ming in particular here. Li Ming is actually someone that if you go for a dash onto, usually they use their ability to jump away, their teleport quickly, and then the X-Strike is easy to follow up as they are usually having that slight wind-up on their animation finishing. So SPT might be intending to go for that, but it is still a curious pick. Dragon Blade gives you so many more tools. We'll see how they try to pay off for it here as Zaka gets caught on the bottom side and Emerald Wind will have to be utilized to get him out.
Power Slide was interrupted mid-animation, which does force Soap to burn that ultimate very early on. And Ballistix will run over that. They'll say thank you very much. We can now go for this rotation, knowing that now our team fight potential is even stronger.
Ballistix continuing to move round and round here. They're opening up the map. The middle of the fort and the bottom of the fort open so they get more wiggle room. This wiggle room has given them an angel here. She's in trouble on the top right side. Gets picked off. Misaka hoping to come help. Has to try now escape.
Stun into Tongue, and that's a dead angel right there, looking for a second kill. If they can go onto Misaka, this would spell a lot of doom for the SPT squad, but Melody C rocks on up. He's going to act as that second member to engage to try and say, be aware, I am a Genji, I am looking to try and even out the scoreboard, but as you say, the theme of this game really has been a case of Ballistix running the strategy. They've been proactive, and SPT constantly trying to force these reactive style plays.
Ballistix is looking incredibly confident right now. They know they have a lead. They have opened up the battleground very well. There was a spot there where they tried to actually use Wave of Force to interrupt the power slide to kill off the ETC. And had Hooligan actually landed his Stormbolt, that would have been a kill. SPT is starting to be outmatched here in terms of macro and even team fights. At some point, it feels like they're going to have to group and force Ballistix's hand. Whether that's around a boss, whether that's around a temple, something needs to happen here because Ballistix has gotten the upper hand almost every fight since 10.
Bit of indecisiveness from SPT, unless they're trying to do that mind game of we're going to go for the boss and force out the scout here from Hooligan. Brightwing is on the bottom temple for the most part here, but 13 must be the big point as to why the hesitation is looking like the likely cause. Sinjar going to get aggressive, using that leaping strike once, then twice, going for Swoy, and the kill is connected.
Xin Zhao and his movement is just a beautiful sight to see. Jumping over the SCSC, which a lesser Lenara would have tried to kill that Greymane, jumping over him as a stepping stool to get to the Rhaegar and take him out. This gets them closer to level 13, but also allows for them to grab that top temple here, which finally will get them closer to taking a fort out. But here's the issue. Look at the bottom. Jungla is getting keeps.
Yeah, once again, it's that macro style of play, right, where you're going to the top lane, you're rotating through to the bottom lane, you're allowing that level lead to stay in place, as the 14 mark is really the big part for SPT. Need to try and find that team fight, as the chaos is definitely not on the same level as we saw in the Curse Solo.
It's a good way to put it there. It's not too chaotic here. It's mostly control from Ballistix. They just seem to have ascended above this group, if I would put it any other way, when you look at all the matches they have currently had so far. And they are well on their way to already making it to Anaheim. But let's not count SPT out yet. They still have a chance here. Even on the talents, still have this boss up in play. While this boss is still here, there is always an angle that SPT could possibly exploit here if they can get Ballistix to overbite on a fight.
And let's discuss the boss itself. Obviously, the resources are in favor of SPT to try and control it. Wave of Force will be a big talking point, but SCSC is low. He concedes death, disengages to the right, team runs to the left. And with that in mind, 16 is still a bit of a way from Ballistix, but this is the perfect opportunity right now for them to go for a boss themselves.
And this is why you never count a Chinese team, SPT, ever out. They will find a way to get a pick with a team fight. They found one there with the Greymane. They even bring the Brightwing in. They are going to take this boss. Now, here's the question. We've seen a couple times with Chinese teams that they'll grab this boss after a kill or two, and they will just completely push with it. With the Brightwing being on the field here, they have that option, but with Dahaka pushing in the top side, Misaka decides to use stage dive. They've got to keep this keep alive. They're going to go ahead and just grab the boss and allow it to passively push.
Absolutely. I mean, this is a case of Ballistix hitting 16, so there's no real sieging potential that SPT can look to achieve. Let's just deny this. As you said, keep this keep alive. Get on that even talent tier footing. This Ballistix slowly starting to set up those win conditions, with the keep now being exposed to temple on that side of the map. We'll start to do some work.
This is the result of the ETC going to the top lane. I mean, the fort was grabbed, but you look at the minimap, Genji, Ariel, Lenara, they played way far away from the boss. You need a tank with you. You need some kind of engage. Even Brightwing came, and Emerald Wind may have risked a lost team fight, especially with that 16 hitting that you were alluding to earlier. So SPT is going with the safe route, but maybe not safe enough. Genji rolling the bush going left. Melody C getting focused pretty quickly from Li Ming, but with the supports coming in, they will keep him alive.
Protected or not, yes, he definitely took a lot of direct damage, all started by the man himself, Hooligan, on the Mirrodin. such a strong hero, really a big stand-up competitor after this patch has gone live, as two temples do now become active. SPT fully committing as a 5-man roster to this middle one.
They need to commit, and they're trying to force a fight. They know they do not have the upper hand here. They know Ballistix is content with controlling the bottom at temple. It's hitting keeps here. They can afford to give up the fort. They trade up as they continue to trade out these 1v1 on the temples. SPT is dancing around, trying to spread that poison, but this was the issue with Lenara. Can they find a spot to get the team weak enough for Genji to move in?
Absolutely, and you talk about the Malfield being a threat here, trying to pad those members down, get them in kill range, allowing Melody C to then try and execute. But I mean, as you say, that Jongha in the bottom lane, he's doing work. This sort of indecisiveness, this sort of dance, if you will, has really cost SPT now as the keeper's fallen down. Those final shots are now going to be working on the middle lane, so if Ballistix can get a desirable fight, they can go for the core in the end.
They could. They can move in for the core, take it out. They have a Greymane, they have Li Ming, both helpful for moving in for core pushes, especially if you take out the Lenara. Now, I was kind of worried / interested whether or not Ballistix would try to fight here in the middle and take the few remaining shots, but they have decided against it. They lost out on their fort, they left Ahaka in the bottom, he's rotating the top lane here, and they're just keeping the map blue and pushing forward. In all honesty, they don't have to do much more until level 20 because there's no boss up for 2 minutes and a half. You usually see around 2 minutes and a half here. They might be around 19 and a quarter and 19 and a half, which gives them the ability to dance around and wait for the 20. Ballistix is playing safe, but very well. They have orchestrated this game beautifully.
Once again, it's just always forcing SPT's hand to say, what are you guys gonna do? How are you gonna choose to try and respond to this one? In this case here, SPT not even able to utilize those global threats that they have in the Brightwing as well as the ETC. And if you register their movement on this mini-map, you can just tell the sort of, not the scaredness, but just the sort of, we need to force something or we are gonna just lose this game.
Well, they might be trying to force something here. As Hooligan is spotted, he's grabbed, and you were talking about chaos earlier, and I think I'm starting to lean with you here. SPT might need to go for that chaotic play.
I mean, they have to right now. Jongha's going to start working on that top keep, and I mean, Ballistix can just do this dance all day long, passive baits, and say, we don't want to fight, but now we do, and we want to try and stop you from going with that back. Jongha will have enough information to allow him to run away. The ETC stage dive coming across, not going to find too much value, if anything, deleting the minion wave.
I mean, that one Storbo that was hit there by Hooligan actually bought Ballistix 9 seconds. Oh no, this is not good, Skimmy.
That is it in a nutshell right there. Once again, it's like one team is playing chess, the other is playing checkers. One falls down to the floor, Melody C is lucky to get alive.
SD is looking for some more kills, and pop! There goes Masika being taken out. There's 2 have fallen here. So hoping to retreat, will use the Emerald Win with the containment threat coming out. Should have enough time. Bot here. No, just kidding. Hooligan, he hops on in.
All the defensive cooldowns are now being burnt, Trek, and this is looking like the beginning of the end. 3 members of SPT down, looking for their 4th kill. Melody C jumping to the left. The X-Strike will come across. It looks flashy. It's not that good, however. 5 members of Ballistix, they're on the core now. Looking for level 20, looking for that security. Going to BlizzCon.
Going to BlizzCon, Ballistix will be doing so here as they come in, even picking the Archon at level 20 as they focus down the core, and we will have our 2nd Korean team going to BlizzCon in Anaheim next week, and Ballistix, man, they are looking dominant.
I mean, it's all in the execution for me. You can just see them consistently out-rotating their opposition. This is their map, and that is the perfect illustration as to why.
Movement was wonderful there from Ballistix, constantly putting their opponents in spots where they had to at least contest, but playfully playing with them, it felt like, actually. Just kind of baiting them into scenarios where there was no way for STG to get the upper hand. And that Li Ming, man, she came in and surprised you as you were winning.
Absolutely, and it's always a nice look to have a hero come across, which for a long time was the go-to.
Yeah.
And as a result of this, very much protected by the way meta. She has fallen out of grace, but she puts in a solid day's work today, and that's what gets Ballistix the win.
Oh, back over to Colaris as Ballistix makes it to BlizzCon.
That's right indeed. Congratulations to them for making it to BlizzCon, as Tim just mentioned. But overall, SPT, I still feel like they put up a good fight going into this series, and it was especially great to actually see that Genji build, of all things, come into action.
Yeah, so that was a little wild of a build that I've seen yet from Melody C. He does occasionally play Extract, but this kind of single target blow up with the Shingen and the Dragon Claw.
Yeah.
We did see it work once, but it was definitely wild from him. But that and then the aerial play still from Sai, I would say Tetra told me it wasn't his strongest. It definitely seems to be that. So I'm hoping going forward we'll get something that's a little more comfortable for SPT and they can revolve around that.
Similarly to Dignitas, I think Ballistix has taken this macro approach to the meta, but they execute instantly in moments for punish. I want to watch the replay of that last Aegis, of that last fight. All right, so ETC stage dives, they instantly go in for the punish. SD misses this orb, but you could see, look at this, Jha reacts, Xin Zhao gets hooked, and we talked about this in the draft. Aegis is just not clean enough to save anybody against this burst. Goodbye! I mean, no one's died that fast before, and you know, the second is ETC stage dives up, look at the minimap. He's coming back down, but it's too late, and they just punish these moves. Then, you know, he tries to come over here, stop the rotation over. Again, punish play coming through, the burst damage, and this team had such a large amount of it, and Aegis can give you that 1 second of relief, but it's not going to save you in the end. You have the stage dive come through, Ballistix punishes, and I feel like you could say it's more of an aggressive team fighting kill focused macro than Dignitas. Dignitas looking for cores, looking for core pressure. This is looking for kills to end the game.
My biggest takeaway from that is that I talked about how they're always decisive in what they do. The minute the stage dive went out, they instantly rotated somewhere else. It's like when you think that you have an advantage. The Dahaka forced that out. I think it was a little bit late. SP didn't get what they wanted. But there was never a time. This is when I watch Ballistix. It almost feels like they're always in control. Yeah, you got to pick or two, but it still feels like they're in control, and they capitalize on every single moment that you have. And that's something that separates Ballistix from a lot of teams, and it's the reason why they're going to BlizzCon. I am always impressed when watching this team.
Well, of course, time to head over to the stage for an interview as Ballistix does advance on to the round of 8.
Thank you so much, Kylaris. That's right, I am back in the interview circle here with none other than captain of Ballistix, SCSC. SCSC, first off, congratulations on a spot at BlizzCon. I know you and your team must be relieved about that. And I've got to ask you, how is your confidence level right now after that dominant performance in the group?
먼저 우승 축하드립니다. 그리고 방금 전 경기에서 압도적으로 우승하셨는데요. 이제 그 이번 경기에서 어떤 식으로 대학교 생각하고 계시나요?
일단 상대방이 한타는 그래도 좀 할 줄 안다고 생각해서 그냥 운영으로 좀 찍어 누르면 안전하게 이길 수 있을 것 같아서 그냥 운영으로 이겼어요.
They believe that the opponent team was very good at team fights, so they transitioned over to micro fights, and I think that work paid off very well, and that's why they won.
That's fantastic. Leads me into my next question. I'm actually curious how your team, Ballistix, currently looks at the game at a broad level and how you balance the focus between macro play, controlling the battleground, and team fighting. Do you tend to focus more heavily on one over the other?
폴리틱스 팀 자체가 굉장히 한타랑 이제 운영도 둘 다 잘하는 팀인데요. 어떤 식으로 조율을 하고 있나요? 게임을 하면서요.
저희는 뭐 딱히 조율하는 건 없고 그냥 잘하는 팀이면 둘 다 신경 쓰고 좀 운영이 안 되는 팀이다 싶으면은 운영만 생각해서 픽을 좀 많이 하는 것 같아요.
They don't actually focus on trying to balance between macro fights and team fights, but they more focus on opponent teams. They say that the opponent teams are weak, a little bit weak on macro fights. They tend to more focus on macro picks and just overwhelm them.
Awesome. All right. Well, you have a week to prepare for BlizzCon. How do you guys intend to spend that week? Are you going to be kicking back and relaxing, or is it nothing but grinding some games in preparation?
이제 블리즈컨까지 일주일밖에 안 남았는데요. 어떤 식으로 시간을 활용할 생각이신가요?
일단 연습할 시간이 있었으면 좋겠는데 잘 모르겠고 그거는. 그리고 좀 상대방들이 이제 좀 잘하는 팀만 남았어요. 그래서 좀 VOD 같은 것도 많이 챙겨보고 하면서 연구해야 될 것 같아요.
There's not that much time for practice, so they'll more focus on watching VODs of opponent players because all the good teams are left over. So they're trying to strategically find out what their weak points are.
Sounds like a solid strategy. Good luck on your preparations to you and your team. We'll see you on the BlizzCon stage. All right, Ballistix, the reigning